Hey there, it's Andrea, and welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today I have with me Stephen Sashan. We've already started a great conversation. I'm excited to continue with you, Stephen. He is a serial entrepreneur who has never had a job, a former professional stand-up comic, and award-winning screenwriter, and a competitive sprinter, one of the fastest men over 60 in the country. He and his wife, Lena Phoenix, co-founded the footwear company Zero Shoes, creating a movement, which has helped hundreds of thousands of people live life feet first, with happy, healthy, strong feet and addictively comfortable footwear. Stephen and Lena also appeared on Shark Tank, where they turned down a $400,000 offer from Kevin O'Leary for a 50% stake in the company. And they went on to make over 33 million in 2021. So I hear. So welcome to the show, Stephen Sashan.
Why, thank you. I couldn't have said that better if I had written it myself.
Okay, we have to start with Shark Tank. Sometimes we start
Okay.
at the very beginning, but we have to start with Shark Tank since that's kind of where we left off. Now, I watched your segment. It was very fun to watch because I was struck by how confident you and Lena were, both in your product, your business plan, and your valuation of the company.
Yeah.
Any idea why you think the sharks didn't see it the same way you did?
Well, look, that episode aired originally in 2013. We taped it in the middle of 2012 when the company was 2.5 years old, not even 2.5 years old, really. And in fact, barely over 2 years old now that I think of it. And we were selling a do-it-yourself sandal making kit. This was a funky little product. And it's basically a way of making a sandal that's similar to what human beings have been making since, I think, the beginning of human beings. It's just something to protect your foot, something to hold that protection on your foot. And people use these sandals for doing everything from taking a walk to running ultra marathons, which for most humans, they think that's insane. Even though, again, that's what we all did for a long time, and people in indigenous tribes now still do. And they thought our valuation was a little nutty because they really didn't get what we were doing. The whole minimalist footwear or barefoot running movement kicked off in 2009-ish. And Mark Cuban said, hey, it's a fad, it's a bubble. It's not, which we knew at the time. So it was just, again, a weird match between a product that they didn't understand, a funky product, frankly, that they didn't understand, and a valuation that they didn't understand either. The footwear industry is really odd, and people, if they don't know it, they don't know it. And so the valuation that we came up with, that we presented, we were offering 8% of the company for $400,000, which is a $5 million valuation. Now, we weren't expecting or thinking that we had a $5 million valuation at that time. I think our revenue that year was like about 600,000, but we knew they were going to try and talk us down. And I was willing to get talked down noticeably, but not to the extent that they were willing to go. And we came up with our valuation by talking to bankers who had bought or sold shoe companies who had been bought or sold, investors of various kinds. I mean, when we talked to people, we had valuation ranges between 2 million and 10 million at a $500,000 sales revenue or sales rate. So just based on whether people valued growth or not, essentially. So we went in with a number we were confident about. We knew everything about our business inside out, backwards, left, and right. If it was numbers, that was all going to Lena because she, A, was our CFO and COO, and B, remembers numbers better than I do. And if it was anything about the product and marketing, that was my thing. So, and last but not least, we're, me in particular, but we both are uninsultable. And the reason that I say that is there's nothing someone could say about me that if I look carefully, I probably can't agree with, unless it's factually inaccurate. If they call me a tall black woman, I'm going to go, that's weird. Why do you think that? But for anything else, if they say, you're arrogant, it's like, you don't know the half of it. You should hear what's going through my head that I don't say. And my apologies. I wasn't trying to come off as a better than, know-it-all, whatever. And if you have any suggestions for how to change that, trust me, man, I am all ears. So when Kevin said you're delusional, my response was maybe. How am I going to argue with that? All entrepreneurs are to a certain extent.
It's true.
So to be uninsultable is kind of fun. And because there's, and I, as a former stand-up comic, I enjoy those high pressure public situations. That's when I'm on my toes and at my best. And so I was just having a blast the whole time.
Oh, wow. What do you think you gained from turning it down?
I want to talk about what we gained before we even got on the show first.
Go for it.
Because when we started this business, it was kind of an accident. In fact, when I came up with the idea, or when I had the idea to turn this little sandal making hobby that I had into a business, Lena said to me, "Yeah, do not do that. Waste of time. Won't make any money. Distraction from other things we're doing." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. I won't do it." And then she went to bed, and I built a website. So she kind of growled at me the next morning, and I said, "It'll be a case study for a search engine business we were starting, and I'll own the keywords that I care about in 3 months." And I was completely wrong. It only took me 6 weeks. So, but we still thought this would be like a lifestyle business, maybe make a car payment. And even after a couple of years, when it was doing pretty well, we still thought it would be, a small kind of thing. But preparing to get on the show is what really made us sit down and decide what we wanted to do, what we wanted personally for ourselves, whether we're in this business or not, what we wanted for the business and the relationship between those two. And we, by that time, had realized this was a bigger deal than we thought. It was much more than a lifestyle business. As Lena says, there's enough shoe companies in the world, no need to start another one, unless your shoes change people's lives. And
Okay.
from day one, that's what we were hearing people say. By getting out of big, thick, stiff, padded, motion controlled shoes and doing what's natural, they were having these life-changing experiences. We knew Shark Tank could help that. So we were like, okay, we're all in. And that focus and that change, not, 180 degrees, but that, change in direction, change in orientation was a really big deal for us. And then being on the show, of course, gave us some awareness and revenue as a result that we couldn't have gotten in any other way. And it allowed people to see us in a way that is a little more unmediated than when they're talking to us directly. They're looking at us. They're not talking to us where we could be saying whatever they think we might want to say to make them happy or whatever it would be. So that was really helpful. So turning it down was frankly effortless. When you see us on the show, whenever someone says I'm out and they cut to us going, whoop, we didn't do that because we didn't care. We knew if they made a deal, it would be a great idea. And if they didn't, no harm, no foul. We wanted a deal, but we were going to be fine no matter what. So I'll have to give you another behind the scenes thing. The Sharks are always trying to throw out a one-liner that's going to be the thing that gets them on television for the preview for the next episode. Because it's called Shark Tank, not Stephen and Lena Tank.
Yeah.
So Kevin's line that he kept saying over and over was, I get it. It's a bunch of Indians running around the desert naked on peyote. So they cut out the on peyote part in the episode. But when we got out of the tank and they said to Lena, what'd you think about Kevin's offer? She says, if he thought we were going to give up half our company, he was the one on peyote, which was brilliant. So it really, and then after, last but not least, is when the show aired, we heard from thousands of people who didn't know about barefoot running or minimalist footwear or any of this stuff. They just said, oh my God, I love this idea. I hate shoes. Those are really cool. I like making my own things. I mean, just all these people from audiences that we never even considered were relevant for us because we came out of the barefoot running, trail running world. And here was people just who knew nothing about that going, I'm in. And that was another thing that really gave us the confidence to move forward, knowing there was a there.
Did you end up taking on other investors?
In 2017, we did an equity crowdfunding raise. So we raised a little over $1 million from customers and friends of friends and just people who believed in what we were doing. And then in December of 2020, we took on a minority investment from a private equity company called TZP. And we only did that because during the pandemic, there was a number of companies who were providing debt financing for us, including UPS, who just because of pandemic things stopped providing that financing.
Okay.
And we needed a lot of cash to support the growth that we've been seeing year over year. And so, as I said to the private equity company, you didn't give us the valuation that we thought we deserved, but we believe in you. All your portfolio companies love you. They say you're not just vultures, that you're really trying to help grow a business. And I said, and frankly, the money that we're not making on the front end of this deal, it's not going to change my life on the back end of this deal. Not going to be a rounding error, but it's not going to change my life. And they've been really good partners to us. And so that's been a surprisingly great help.
Okay. So you're a serial entrepreneur.
True.
What lessons did you bring with you into Zero Shoes from other businesses that you've created, things you've created, and even running?
The biggest one is really just marketing 101, which is there's a friend of mine who had a great line, which is making money is really easy. Find out where the money is flowing and get in the way of it. And so what that often means is, their business is looking to make money and they're advertising. So if you can help them with advertising, that's a great way to make money. Or, any variation thereof, anything where you're not trying to reinvent a wheel, you're trying to find a wheel that's already rolling and start rolling with it. So the biggest lessons that I brought with me had to do with how to find that audience and how to, most importantly, add value to them, to their lives. Don't try to sell things, try to add value. On day one, I posted videos on YouTube that gave away our entire business model. Here's how to do it. Here's where to go get the materials. Here's how to, literally gave away the whole thing. In fact, somebody on YouTube just the other day, CNBC has a new thing called Shark Tank Misses. And we were the first episode that they featured as a Shark Tank miss. And somebody said, well, you're not the only one doing this. I went, yeah, but when we started, I was. So people didn't seem to understand sort of the history of things. But I literally gave away just the whole thing and participated in conversations and engaged with people who would be amenable to what we were doing. And then similarly, when it came time to be able to advertise, and again, like I mentioned, the SEO skill that I already had. So I knew how to get rankings. For the first 9 months of the business, for any keyword that I cared about, I had 40 of the top 50 search results. So that was something that was very helpful.
Yeah.
And, the fact that I know how to write copy, and I do that by telling the truth, by being engaging in some way, by building curiosity or interest, especially now that we have a complete line of boots, shoes, and sandals that are the opposite of what people are used to when it comes to especially running shoes or performance shoes. That's a real challenge. Like most products and most advertising is based on one of the following two formulas. Here's a better version of something you already understand, or here's something that once I tell it to you, you're going to go, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? And I want it. Like, let me think of a good one. Here we go. Vitamin infused dark chocolate. Feel free. Someone can run with it. I don't have time to deal with it, but it's a no brainer. So, but we can't do either of those, because if I just say what we're doing is better and I hold up one of our shoes that doesn't have a big, thick midsole, doesn't have a whole bunch of cushioning, doesn't have arch support, because you don't need any of that because your feet work fine when they're working naturally. But if I just show a shoe and say it's better, people say, but where's the cushioning, the arch support, the motion control, the padding, et cetera? And if I just say you don't need it, like I just did, guaranteed there are people going, yeah, but I need it, or my doctor says I do. But if you're right, then how come these other shoe companies aren't doing what you're saying? Or how come professional runners aren't wearing your shoes, which they are, by the way? So, if you tell people they're mistaken or that their belief is incorrect, they don't go, wow, thank you. They say, hey, moron. And they come back with their own often misrepresented version of their own experience, or just repeating something they were told by a kid who works at a shoe store who was told what to say by a big shoe company.
Are you talking about marketing or politics right now?
Yeah, I'm talking about everything. But I appreciate that you pulled that out. So I was a cognitive psych major at Duke way back when, and this is just cognitive psychology 101, is that we make beliefs very quickly and we hold on to them like they're life and death. Yeah. Because at a time in our history, we had to make them quickly and they were life and death. And we still act that way, even though it's rarely true.
I think the idea of getting in front of the stream where the money is flowing, getting in front of that, and then also telling the truth. Just telling the truth.
Yeah.
I think, what do you think why do you think it's so easy for you, maybe hard for others, or is it easy for you?
I'll say, look, as a lifelong marketer, while I'll tell the truth, I can be hyperbolic. I am hyper optimistic, as any typical entrepreneur is, but it's just easier for me. I just don't like it if people lie. I mean, look, I'm in an industry, in the footwear industry, and I'm going to go out on a not very long limb to say the majority of companies in this space, especially the biggest ones, are lying to their customers in order to make money. And I say that, I'm going to have to give an example because people are going to get in a tizzy about this. A company that I shouldn't name, but I will, called Nike, they put out a study right before COVID, actually, and then they republished it about 9 months ago, where they tested their best-selling running shoe against a new shoe they had developed. And the way the results of this study was presented and regurgitated by the media was new shoe reduces injuries by 52%. It was true. Until you look at the numbers, then it's a different story. The best-selling shoe injured over 30% of the runners under 12 weeks. The new shoe only injured 15%. So let's call 15% 1 out of 7, which is roughly 1 day out of a week. Let's call 30% 1 out of 6. Let's round it up to, that's 1 out of 3. Let's round it up to 2 out of 7, just for the sake of having a week for my upcoming metaphor or analogy. So we got 1 out of 7 versus 2 out of 7. I'm going to buy you dinner every night this week at a restaurant. You have a choice between 2. In one of the restaurants, you're going to have a high probability of getting food poisoning once. The other, you're going to have a high probability of getting it twice. Which one do you want to go to? It's a no-brainer. You don't go to either. If you walked into a shoe store and they said, here's our best-selling shoe, by the way, it injures about 30% of the people within 12 weeks. It's like, oh, no. Do you have another one? Oh, well, this one only injures about 15% of the people in under 12 weeks. Jesus, don't you have a shoe that doesn't injure people? Yeah, dude, this is a running shoe store. I have no idea why I have this in my brain, but I find that lying to get what you want is really, really unpleasant. And the people who do it, I do not like. And as a person who consumes marketing products, in other words, people approach me saying they can help me with my business. My favorite lie they always say is, this is going to make you all this extra money. And I go, maybe. You can't promise that. Well, we're really confident. Yeah, I don't care how you feel. Like, what? I said, if you are really confident, you put your money where your mouth is. Well, we can't do this with a money back guarantee. I said, oh, you could if you really believed in what you were doing and had the numbers to back it up, but you don't have that. So anyway, that was a long answer to, I'm not even sure what your question was. Oh, telling the truth. Yeah, look, it's just easier. And, I'll say one other thing about it. I think people can tell. I mean, they don't necessarily know when they've been lied to, but when you can show them the truth next to the lie, it's not uncommon that people can recognize which is which. Again, sometimes they're going to hold on to a belief and not go there. But way back when, I was helping promote a nutritional supplement that I said, if anyone tells you this is going to change your life, run. They're lying. Because basically, this is a fundamental thing. It's an antioxidant. And if you believe in antioxidants, this is a great one. Tastes good, money back guarantee. What is there to lose? But I'm not going to tell you that it's going to, reduce your mortgage rate, get your kids into college, and help you play guitar like, whoever plays guitar really well. Jimi Hendrix, there's a good one. And anyway, it's just easier. You don't have to remember your lie if you tell the truth. And having the truth on your side is really a superpower. Like when I'm debating people who are from big shoe companies, in fact, I don't even have to posit anything that's true. I can just ask questions like, where's your proof? And they don't have any for what they say. And then I can show them all of mine. And because I know everything that I have behind me, and I know I can stand behind it all, it literally makes you, it feels like being indestructible. There's nothing anyone can say that can throw you off the simple game of coming back to the truth. And that's fun for me, not them.
Okay. So you're obviously very driven by belief.
I'm driven by reality. I'm driven by the facts.
Okay,
if I just believed it and if I believed it and was in an echo chamber and people were arguing with me with valid points, then I would not be holding on to my belief. I'd be reevaluating my life. But no one has presented anything to me, and all the research backs up what I'm saying, to argue with this simple thing: letting your body do what it's made to do is better than getting in the way of that.
Okay, so maybe I need to reframe that. How about you have a message? Is that fair? You have a message.
Yes.
And that message, you have a podcast, or is it a podcast and a YouTube channel, just YouTube channel?
All of the above. I have a podcast that I call the Movement. There's a YouTube channel. Basically there's, social media all over for it. And so it's on podcast places and on YouTube and Facebook and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And some people make businesses to make money. Some are driven by a message of some kind. How would you say that the message and your business, it seems like they're completely intertwined, but how would you describe it?
Well, I think you were heading for another point, which is the other intersection of sort of my personal life. So there's the
Sure.
business, the message, and me
And you too. Yeah.
and my wife. And I will
Hmm.
say that we are one because we're married. Uh,
Hmm.
and
There you
so
go.
legally we are one. Um, it's a really interesting question. Again, going back to the thing of that we get emails every day from people who say, you've changed my life, either by providing something that's comfortable for the first time, or because, for example, we don't squeeze your toes together in a pointy toe box. We let your toes wiggle and let your piggies do what they're supposed to do, whether they're going to market or going wee all the way home. And I don't recommend that latter one. And then wait till you get home to go wee is all I'm saying. So that's a really strong motivator, is that we know we're doing something that's helping people. The pulling the rug out from underneath companies that have been lying and harming people for years, that's another motivator. To be totally candid, I don't like that one because it puts me in a somewhat adversarial position with much of the world. And that's not pleasant, to be totally frank. I liked myself better when I was just screaming into the wind for no good reason, or, complaining that someone was driving 5 miles under the speed limit in front of me, which I do every day. But now, I'm up against hundreds of billions of dollars of people that I think are doing the wrong thing. And I want to change that. And not by becoming bigger than them, but by making them change, by
Mm.
pointing out to people that that they've been harming you, that they've been lying to you, that they've been sucking money out of the inner city ever since they realized there was a confluence between sneaker culture and hip hop culture. There's a lot of things that I'm just really get under my skin. Personally, I'm a 60-year-old guy. My wife is 6 years younger than I am. I hope I never have to do another business. So we are on the entrepreneurial retirement program. And put all of those things together, and that's what gets me out of bed every day, and what makes me do 80-hour weeks when I do 80-hour weeks, and that's most the weeks. And it's yeah, I'm driven by all of that. And I mean, I can't leave out, I've been a competitive athlete my whole life. So this whole situation has taken a competitive drive that normally only applied itself to an individual sport, gymnastics, running, etc. And now it's permeated the culture of the company as well. Not in an obnoxious way. It's just that it's like, we want to win, and winning doesn't mean that we become the biggest company. Like someone said, what if Nike ended up stealing all your ideas? Like, great, we won.
Mm.
And there's always a way to market. When people say, well, isn't what you're doing ultimately just a marketing play? I go, well, once a product becomes a commodity, it's always just a marketing play. And we would love to get to the point where what we're doing is a commodity, because there's
Mm.
always ways to market in ways that other people are not, and build successful businesses. I hear there's more than one multi-billion-dollar shoe brand. I hear there's more than one multi-billion-dollar car brand, and every other product you can think of. I can work with that.
Mm. Okay, so it sounds like success is changing the marketplace around shoes.
Um,
And
People ask me what our goals are, and I go, we
yeah,
only have one. We're trying to change the world.
yeah, yeah.
And the subset of that is helping people live life feet first, helping people discover that letting your body do what's natural is demonstrably beneficial in ways that you couldn't even imagine. I mean, here's one. I'll give you two that I never thought of. One is parents saying that their kids are wearing our shoes, and their kids have autism or ADD or ADHD, and they only want to wear our shoes, and they're functionally better. Now, I'm not promising this. I'm not making a medical claim. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV or the internet, but I just want to report this story. And I can think of a reason why, which is basically that the stimulation that you get, the ground feedback that you get while wearing our shoes, which is an important thing. You have more nerve endings in your soles of your feet than anywhere but your fingertips and lips. If you shut that off, your brain is both either shutting down that part that's waiting for that feedback, or constantly looking for that feedback. So my contention, and we're hoping to do a study about this, is that for these kids, that new feedback, or that right amount of feedback, is calming in the same way that Ritalin can be when you get a little bit of a stimulant, or calming in a way that makes the brain not have to work so hard to try to get information that it's not getting, because now it's
Mm.
getting it.
Hmm.
Similarly, we had a customer come by, put on our shoes, took a walk outside, and was raving about how much he could feel the ground. And he recognized where he was just by feeling the ground, which was important because he's blind. And I literally said, I'm embarrassed that it didn't occur to me that this is a community we could help. And now what can we do to help? So there was a reason I said that. Oh, so yes, change the world. So these are these little subsets of things that we can do. And of course, we have professional athletes who say they're playing better, feeling better, have more seasons in a career, in a game, more games in a season, more seasons in a career, because they're not getting injured the same way, because they're using their feet, which have gotten stronger, which means, there's a whole cascade of good things from there. And again, no promises. Your results may vary. Don't look in the mirror. But this is what we see over and over and over. And over the next years, we're going to see more and more research to back this up when I then can say these things, even though I'm not a doctor and don't play one on the internet.
Very, very interesting. You mentioned culture. I was looking through your website, and in your COO's bio, Brighton's bio, he said, or somebody said, at Zero Shoes, we drive an environment where everyone is encouraged and safe to voice their most forward-thinking, riskiest ideas, which I have to say, I love this. I love it because that's what we're all about. So tell me a little bit about it.
Well, I like to say all businesses rise to the level of the neuroses of their founders. And Lena and I are not hierarchical people. If someone calls me boss, I will smack them. And we know that in any given department, there are people who are not in that department who may have ideas good for that department. So when we're developing new product, almost the whole company is involved in doing that in certain ways, not like from the ideation, but if we're trying to decide which ones to make, or the names for the products, or colorways, or various things, we want everybody involved. On the marketing side, same thing. We want everybody to be involved. Just in the kind of way we think of people. People come in, and let's say they're working in our customer happiness team. At a certain point, we'll say to them, all right, you've been here for a while. You've probably seen some things that we're doing wrong, or that we're not using you to your fullest. What kind of job do you want to create for yourself? And then we'll let them do it, because why wouldn't we? Our accountant started out in customer service, and during the course of this, he got really interested in business and really interested in accounting. He's got an MBA. He's working in the accounting side. He's developing skills that if he ever leaves, and I say that because he was the first person to, in a annual review, refer to what he did here as his career. And when he left the room, Lane and I looked at each other and went, holy crap, we've created a thing where people have careers. We had no idea. We were just so nose to the grindstone. And it shows up in another way that we really, really like. We have a quarterly profit sharing inspired bonus plan. So every quarter, if we have a profit, we will take a percentage of that, and it gets split evenly among everybody in the company. Everybody in the company. Warehouse people, customer service people, product people. I try not to take mine, and they won't let me not take it. And we got first of all, people who like work in our warehouse, they've never gotten a bonus. They've never been acknowledged in that way, but we know that everybody here in every role is critical for the survival and success and operation of the company. And we just want people to know that we know that and demonstrate that in different ways. We got an email from one of our warehouse employees who just was like almost in tears, because she said, because of working here and what you've been able to do for us, I just was able to buy a house. And I'm going to cry. And, that's a big deal. And we've also built in another plan for if there ever is a change of control, if an investor comes in and takes a majority position, or if we sell the company in some way, same thing. We've created something where everybody gets a piece of that, because they all helped us get here. This whole idea that it's just the people at the top, I think the technical term for that idea is complete bullshit. So, we want to make sure everyone knows how we value them.
That's cool. Okay, I've got a few questions for you around leadership as a CEO, if you don't mind.
Well, good luck with that one.
asking some of these same questions of some other CEOs right around this time of year, looking into 2023. And when we shared with you that we wanted to ask you some of these questions, you said that you might have some unconventional answers. So
It's possible.
that made me excited to ask. So I don't mind at all if you have an unconventional answers.
Right.
We're just curious. So, okay, what has been one of the biggest factors in your company's success?
I would say 90% of the success of our company is luck, and the other 10% is also luck. And then there's a separate 100% where it's loosely related, where 90% is working your butt off, and the other 10% is hopefully being smart enough to know how to put out the fires that started overnight, despite the fact that nothing changed since yesterday. So the biggest factor, frankly, is that we're making a product that changes people's lives. I just remember this. A friend of mine, he's a well-known, probably world famous, definitely nationally famous psychologist. And he's written a bunch of books, and he's a very interesting guy. And he said, making money, becoming rich is really easy. Find a way to change people's lives and ask them for a little money in exchange. And so that's the number one thing, really. If we didn't have that, this would be just a slog. But I don't want to dismiss the luck factor. When I used to ask people who had let's call them successful, even though the only barometer or yardstick people use for that is typically revenue or income, which is not a good one. But nonetheless, I would ask people, instead of asking you what made you successful, because you're going to give me some ridiculous answer that's all about you, most likely, I want to know how much of what you've achieved is due to luck, chance, fate, and things that are completely out of your control. And they get really animated and tell me amazing stories about these crazy things that happened to them. So, I mean, I'll give you two from mine. Our product developer, he'd been developing footwear for 40 years when we met him, or 35 years, 40 years, somewhere in there, and had been making a lot of money doing that. But the way we met him was that he was walking his dog one morning, and normally his wife walks the dogs. And a friend of ours was walking his dog, and normally his wife walks the dog. And the dogs knew each other, so the guys were talking. And my friend says, "What do you do?" And Dennis said, "I'm the head of global product design at Crocs." And our friend said, "Oh, my friend Stephen and Elena have a shoe company." We didn't have a shoe company. We were selling sheets of rubber and string to make a do-it-yourself sandal. But anyway, Dennis gave this guy his phone number. He gave it to me. I sat on it for months because I'm thinking, why would this guy want to talk to me? And then eventually I called him, we had lunch, and I said, "Man, I'd love to work with someone like you someday." He goes, "What about me?" I said, "You made last year 5 times what we made last year." And he goes, "Yeah, but I'm retired now." I went, "Oh, then you're hired." So, but what are the odds that the dogs knew each other and that all those things conspired? Was. But the biggest one is that somehow my amazing, wonderful wife decided to become my amazing, wonderful wife, and not the girl who avoided me like the plague for 4 years. You'll have to ask her how that happened. But we met, and she really was like, back off for 4 years. And had we not been a couple, this couldn't have happened, because I couldn't have done it on my own. And there's no way I could have ever hired someone as talented and committed as Lena.
Really, really interesting. Okay. What is...
Oh, sorry, wait, last one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nassim Taleb, who wrote the book most people know of his is The Black Swan, but his first book is called Fooled by Randomness. The subtitle is something like, pardon me if I'm getting it wrong, The Hidden Role of Chance in Markets and Life. And it's a lot of it is just about how we underestimate the value of these unpredictable, crazy, lucky things. And a lot of entrepreneurs do that, and they think it's all about them. I have no illusions that this is, insanely lucky. Even just, look, the things that I'm good at have all come together really well in this company. Who would have thought that this strange, disparate collection of marketing, stand-up comedy, running, and the myriad other things, cognitive psychology from Duke, I mean, the myriad things all would make sense in one package somewhere. I wouldn't have. I didn't. It made no sense to me, and here we are.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I can relate to some of that. I appreciate that. And I think it's something about just living life, that luck factor, just like there's something elusive and adventurous about that.
I mean, on the one hand, you have to be willing to take the step when the door opens and there are stairs in front of you.
Yep.
But a door just showed up and opened. I mean, you have no control over that part. Let's not be, silly about that one.
What do you think is your number one challenge as a CEO going into 2023?
My number one challenge as a CEO always is that I don't think of myself as a CEO.
Okay. Yeah.
So I actually mentioned this to a friend of mine who's a serial CEO and has seen way more deal flow than I have and way more businesses than I. And he said, "Oh, no, you don't get it. There's operational CEOs, there's financial CEOs, there's legal CEOs, there's product marketing CEOs. You're one of those." It's like, oh, but I don't, just because of my weird psychology, managing is not my thing. I
Okay.
work on the sometimes incorrect assumption, fewer and fewer times moving forward, that people will do their jobs and be committed to doing their jobs and can do them competently or even better than competently, and that they will take responsibility for when things go wrong and how to address that, and all the various things that basically, as a founder entrepreneur, we have to do. But I expect everyone else to kind of do the same. And of course, that's a completely fallacious way of and ridiculous way of viewing the world. But I can't shake that one.
Mm.
As the company has grown, I've had to bring in people who can do all these other tasks, and to do that weird combination of getting them up to speed, letting them demonstrate that the skill set they're bringing to the table is valid and useful, and highlighting how what they are bringing to the table may be baggage from other things. Let's call it positive baggage, successful in the past, but not relevant here. That combination of things is frankly very challenging for me. I tend to lean in the direction of, here's the idea, knock yourself out, show it to me when it's perfect or needs, tiny bit of work. We'll work it out together. We'll hack it out and away we go. But that's just not realistic as the company continues to grow. We still don't have middle management layers, happily. At a certain point, that may occur, and that's when I will shoot myself in the face, because there's nothing that I like less than that idea. So just finding helping people really thrive in these higher level positions so that I don't have to be doing 80-hour weeks, and finding people who are better at certain things than I am. That's a tricky thing. And I'm going to say this, and this is going to sound really self-aggrandizing, and it's not my intention. One of the problems that Lena and I both have is that we're really smart. And so finding people who can outsmart us in the places where we've been doing these things for decades is tricky and expensive. And so we didn't have the cash to bring in really high-level C-level talent until the last year and a half. So that's a whole new world. I don't have founder syndrome. I don't have that I need to hold on to it. It's all my thing. I'd rather just like hand it off entirely and just watch the parade. But I can't do that until people demonstrate that they can handle that. And it's not just the technical, practical tasks, it's the psychological and interpersonal tasks as well. And put all that together, and anyone listening might know what I just said is a very tall order, in part because you don't know what someone's really like till, fan and feces are coming into contact with each other.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you see as one of the greatest opportunities for mid-market companies like yours in 2023?
Well, I resent the fact that you think there are other mid-market companies like ours, but I'll ignore that for now. So,
well, let's hope that there are. Let's hope that there are other companies like you who care about their message and are doing a good job. They're growing, all that kind of thing. Okay, let's go with that.
Okay, sure. The challenge, the biggest challenge is it's always the same, really. It's how can you get your message to the right person at the right time at a price that allows you to run and grow a business. I mean, it's never going to change, just the variables in that equation change. So what's been going on with Facebook lately? I got asked yesterday, what are your projections for Facebook? I said, well, I think that the stories of their demise are grossly overrated, but because who knows? Yeah. Whatever's going on for them now that's problematic, they're not a bunch of idiots. They might pull it out. They might not. They might become the next MySpace, but I doubt it. So I don't have any specific predictions. I think that one thing we're going to see next year is the whole idea about inflation versus corporate profits versus how much money people are making versus the cost of staples. It's going to shake out a little bit. I don't know in which direction, but right now everything's been so volatile that people are afraid to move. They don't know what to do because everything is so crazy. I think it's going to get a little less crazy until like the end of Q2 next year. And I say that because in the financial world, there's all these private equity companies and venture capitalists and strategic companies that haven't been buying or selling. There hasn't been as much M&A activity as there has been in the past. And the limited partners and investors who are backing all those people are waiting for their money to be deployed so they can make money on their investment. And because there haven't been a lot of investment and these LPs are going to need to get, some kind of return, my prediction is that by the middle of next year, there's going to be one or two larger venture capital companies or private equity firms or strategic companies that make some big plays. And that's going to let all the lemmings know they don't need to jump off the cliff and they can turn around and go back to work. So I think next year, by the second half of next year, we're going to see a crazy amount of M&A activity. And that could be very interesting in all the ways that you can use the word interesting. So I don't think it's going to be like it was in the past with companies getting ridiculous valuations when they haven't proven they can make a penny. But I think there's going to be a lot of activity, and it'll be curious to see how it fleshes out.
Yeah, interesting. A lot of times companies get to that mid-market spot and then they're wanting to double their revenue that second time or, that next time.
Yeah.
And it's harder. Did you have that experience? And if so,
No.
if not, why? What do you think helped you to get to that next level for you?
Yeah. So we're not in doubling mode right now, but we are still rapidly growing. I wish I could give you numbers, but since we did that crowdfunding raise, I can't say anything that isn't public.
Sure.
But suffice it to say, when people have been saying to us since day one, that projection for your growth, I don't think that's going to happen. Or you can't keep growing 50% year after year after year. And I keep going, we haven't even hit our stride yet. Once we really hit our stride, you're going to see a couple, 100, 200, 300s for a while. And in the footwear industry, that's a very doable thing. Because if, for example, some major retailer really gets behind what you're doing, that alone can, triple your company overnight. The way Crocs went from practically nothing to a couple $100 million was they got a purchase order from, I think, Dillard's, and then they took that PO to Macy's, and they took that PO to Nordstrom, and overnight, massive success, a lot of revenue. I can't say success. That's a different story. So those things can happen. But in 2020, when we were taking this company to market right before COVID, because we thought we just needed the capital to keep doing what we were doing, and we did need that capital. There were a lot of people who turned us down because they thought our projections were ridiculous, even though we had toned them way down. And so at the end of 2021, I sent emails to about 20 people with the subject line, "Is it too rude to say I told you so?" And everybody was very gracious. So, wow. It just depends on what your business is and your business model is. So for us, there are a couple of things that factor into this. One, we have not even come close to really maximizing what we can do on the wholesale side of our business. The second is on the digital side, there are things that we're doing where we're doing new kinds of creative and developing these in new ways that we have more of them and we can scale them better. So, and we don't do anything that isn't profitable on day one, even though we know what our customer lifetime value is, and it's very high compared to the initial purchase. And our customer behavior is nuts for a shoe company. The number of people who own more than 5 pairs of our shoes, crazy high percentage of our total customer base. The number of orders we get from returning customers, unheard of in the footwear space. So that's going to help drive it as well. And so essentially, it's kind of a virtuous cycle that gets created. The more, I'll say it this way. I did this in an investor pitch. I said, some of you are going to doubt what I'm saying about why our product is life-changing and why what we think of as an athletic shoe or even a casual shoe is not good for you, even though I've got tons of research behind me and I'm one of the leading experts on this stuff in the world. And if you check and you wonder where you got the belief that argues with me, if you look far enough back from the guy who told you to the guy who told them to the guy who told them, it'll eventually end up at a shoe company who was saying something probably misleading and then taught that to someone at a shoe store because they didn't know any better. But even with all of that, you still might doubt me. That's okay. Because we're growing rapidly. The space that we're in is growing, as evidenced by all the new companies coming into this space and a couple of our competitors who are also growing well. So things like ideas like ours, where the experience really sells the product. You put our shoes on your feet and it's like, oh, that's a whole different game. As the awareness of what we're doing grows, and it has been and will continue to, we hit a certain critical mass point when there's enough awareness that even the doubters go, I'll give it a shot. And because the experience sells it, that's when things go exponential. And I would argue that we're getting really close to that. And so, I mean, the only thing I can say in terms of advice or something for anyone else about this is I can't say be realistic about what's going to happen because I'm never that way. That's what my wife does. I'm optimistic. She is not, I wouldn't say pessimistic, but she's more the realist than I. And, but be careful is the best thing I can say. And that's meaningless because no one thinks of what that means. That's not an actionable thing to say, but be attentive to where you're overextended. Be attentive to, because for us, we have to spend a lot of money on inventory before we sell anything because we're our biggest customer as a DTC brand or predominantly DTC brand. We know that we need to be hiring ahead of when we need those people because we need them up to speed when it's ready to go. That's expensive. We know that we need more warehouse space before we need the warehouse space. That's expensive. So everything we're doing is from a leverage perspective, risky. The good news is we don't see any evidence that things are going to crash and burn. And if they crash and burn for reasons that we can't predict at all, I hear Quiznos is hiring.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't have, if everything falls apart because we were committed to what we were doing and we were overextended to the extent that we have to be to do what we're doing, oh, well. I mean, it's not going to, maybe I'll have to live on the beach. Not a big deal. It's a very doable thing. So I'll say this, I'll back to Nassim Taleb. He referred to himself before he retired as a crisis options trader. He and the company that he worked with, they'd sit around once a week, once a month, I can't remember, and just think of everything that could go wrong in the world because they were betting on things going wrong. Because when things go wrong, you can make more money faster than things going right as an investor. Things fall apart faster than they grow. So you got to do the same thing in your own business constantly. And I will say, happily being married to my wife, I don't have to do it because she already does it. So, but our CFO does as well. I mean, everybody who's at the top of the company, if you will, we're very attentive to what could go wrong and doing the best we can to hedge against that, knowing that the best hedge we have is that worst case scenario, we take all of our inventory, we put it on our website at half price, and we'll make a fortune over the next 2 weeks and then walk away and it'll be okay.
Okay. Building the organizational infrastructure to just sustain all of it, that high growth. What obstacles did you face in that process, or what has your company done well?
It's no different for us than anybody else. Finding good talent is hard. And then even if you find really good talent, people have, what are they called? Lives? Is that the word that they have that I don't?
Human lives. Yeah.
Not ringing a bell. It's just, I can't say anything special there. We happily, TZP, our private equity partner, they have a brilliant HR person who's really helped us find good people, negotiate good contracts, and identify people who fit culturally, and which is critically important. I mean, one of my favorite things about our office, again, as a former stand-up comic, everybody is totally cool with a good self-deprecating joke or, with being teased in friendly ways. If that weren't the case, we'd all explode. And if there's somebody who works here who doesn't have a good sense of humor, they're not going to last. So, so that's a thing. But just, I like to ask questions when we're hiring people that are a little weird. My favorite being, give me 3 good reasons, and this has to be legitimate reasons that we shouldn't hire you. And they're like, what do you mean? I go, all right, here's mine. If you're looking for someone who's organized, I'm not your guy. If you're looking for someone who's going to read reports every day, I'm not your guy. If you're looking for someone who's going to not say things that make HR want to lose their minds, I'm not your guy. So that's 3 off the top of my head, and I've probably got 5 more. So I want people to demonstrate that kind of self-awareness. And self-awareness is a dying profession, especially in a culture, thanks to social media, where blaming and complaining have become a currency.
So true. Very interesting. I like that question. Okay. I have one more question for you after you share with us where can people find Zero Shoes
Oh,
and you and your movement stuff.
thank you I appreciate you saying that because I always forget about that. I do that. So Zero Shoes is XERO shoes, but happily, if you type in Zero Shoes with a Z or your computer makes you do that because it doesn't believe you, you'll still get to us at zeroshoes.com or on social media at Zero Shoes or /Zero Shoes, wherever you at or slash. Or if you're in the European Union, zeroshoes.eu and all the relevant ats and slashes for that as well.
All right, great. Okay, my last question for you. So our podcast is, and our company name is called Voice of Influence. Influence being mutual, not me trying to get you to do what I want you to do all the time, but to be able to make a difference together. So what advice do you have for someone who wants to have a voice of influence?
Other than tell the truth as often and as loudly as you can, that's really the biggest one. I was at a trade show in Europe pre-COVID, and there was a lot of conversations going on about things like sustainability, which is a giant, oh boy, let's just say the Harvard Business Review did a great article called The Myth of Sustainability, mostly talking about the footwear and apparel industry, saying that everything people say they're doing that's sustainable isn't. The actual cost of producing some of these eco-friendly products is not carbon beneficial when you do the math. There may be a couple, but it's a whole different thing. And so there were a number, and of course, I'm surrounded by footwear brands that are doing what I think is pure evil. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks that day. Even though I had been pretty outspoken in the past, I went, oh, I'm not here to make friends with these people. I'm here to tell the truth, and I'm here to change the world. And so if you can pull off both of those, that's going to take you pretty far, although you will become obnoxious at dinner parties.
Well, thanks for being a voice of influence and telling the truth today here on our podcast. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Oh, I forgot to mention the podcast. Even though you prompted me, that's at jointhemovement.com. There's no cost for joining. There's no secret handshake. It's just that's the domain that I got. So you can find that there too.
Well, we'll definitely include all that in the show notes as well.
Thank you.